This is Brady Hill with Kipta. In this video, I'm going to go over very briefly the expedited project application process for the 2024 call for projects. As stated in the other video, the full project application video that you can view here, the first question you're going to need to know is, hey, there's two project applications. There's a full project application and an expedited project application. Which one of these do I need to fill out for my project that I'm trying to submit for the call for projects? For an expedited project application, this application should only be filled out if one, it's an existing project. So it's a project that already has MPO dedicated funding. It's already programmed in the TIP or just programmed through you've already been awarded funds to the TPC. And if it is an existing project, if a part of your application that you're not suggesting or requesting a change to the project's substantive changes to the project's design, concept, location, or scope. So if you're not changing the scope of the project and it's an existing project, then you can use the expedited project application, which is obviously it's expedited. It's quicker. You don't have to answer all of the questions because your project doesn't need an updated MTP score. Also of note, if you have a project that's existing, that already has MPO dedicated funds, and you are not requesting any changes at all, it's good as is. You don't need to change anything for the call for projects. You don't need to submit an application at all. We will just assume that everything is remaining as status quo and bring that into the next tip. So details for the expedited project application. Much of it is very similar to what is in the full project application with just less questions asked. It's going to ask you, are you applying for additional MPO dedicated funding for the project via the call for projects? And that's pretty clear. Yes or no, are you asking for additional funds? And is this project existing or new? If you click new, you're going to get this redirect and say, hey, this application is not for new projects. If you have a new project, you need to do the full project application. But if you've chosen the right one, then you'll click existing and you'll continue on, and it'll say, do your proposed project changes represent a substantive change in design concept, location, or scope? And if you click yes, then it'll say, hey, it's the wrong application. You can do the full project application because we need to rescore the project. It's doing a scope change. But if you say no, then you'll continue on. And then you'll get to the location question where there's a map. If you've watched the full project application video, you understand that this map portion for the full project application is very important. We need to know where exactly your project is. But for the expedited application, this question is really only here because the software requires us to have it here. We don't really need a map because we already have your map for an existing project. You've already done it at some point. So, but you still need to do the question just so that the application will let you proceed. So for an expedited project application where there are no scope changes, no location changes or anything like that, you're just doing funding changes or open public date changes or something small, something minor, then you'll still click on the top right button and just make a random line anywhere. You can see that we geolocated the default location in Asia just to kind of show like location doesn't matter for an expedited project application map. Just draw a line somewhere as instructed here, the instructions above. You'll put in the information of the project. A lot of this information, if it's not changing, will be the same as it was before. So you can use this link here, the fiscal year 2023 through 2026 TIP project listings link. You click it here. It will take you to this page where you'll see a clickable link for a Kentucky TIP project listings and Indiana TIP project listings. And so that you click on these buttons and it'll download an Excel file that you can use to search for your project via its KIPTA ID or via its state ID. You can look for all the project phases under your name as a sponsor or LPA. or however it is you want to search. There's several options you can search for projects. But by doing that, searching for projects, you can look and say, oh, this is what our project description says as of all changes processed of July 26, 2024, as you can see on this page. And so you can just copy and paste a lot of the same information if it's not changing. Or if it needs to change, but just a little bit. So you don't have to write a whole new description or a whole new justification. You can just copy and paste. And if you need to change a little something, then you can do that, and it's a lot easier. So that link is available here. And you'll put in all the information for your project. Brief summary, describe your intended project changes. Just basically tell us, once again, just very short summary. It can be a list or something. What are you doing? Are you asking for funds? Are you just shifting project funding phases back? Are you changing the open to public date? Like what are you doing in general? And then there's a bunch of questions where we'll ask, is something changing? Is the description changing? You click yes or no. If yes, then you have a chance to put your adjusted project description. As a note, if your project description is changing, that might mean it's a scope change. Not necessarily. There are circumstances where that's not true. But if your project termini is changing or anything like that, that might mean you actually need a full project application. So you want to think about that. So for most cases, when it asks, is your project description changing for an expedited application, it's going to be no. And it'll ask, is your justification changing, project cost changing, open and public clear changing, etc. And if you click yes, then it'll give you an option to share what that adjustment is. And if not, you can just skip through. Contact information, funding. We will ask for funding that you input each year starting in fiscal year 24 and beyond for the funding. So please input all your phases, even if they're not changing, because if you don't include a programmed phase, then we may assume, oh, maybe they don't need that anymore, right? For the funding section, we want you to put in what it is you want it to look like in the tip in an ideal situation if granted all the funding. So if it's an expedited project application that you are still requesting MPO dedicated funds for, so let's say you need a construction phase, you already have a design phase and a right-of-way phase programmed. So you'd put design in phase 1 for whatever year it's programmed in there, and you put right-of-way in phase 2 here for whatever year it's programmed in there with the funding source appropriate. So if you were given STBG funds for the design right-of-way, then you put in the funding source as STBG for your state. And you put in the dollar amounts that you have programmed, or more. If you're requesting, hey, I need another $1 million in right of way, then you put in $1 million more for what you need for the federal and local split here. And then now you need a construction phase because your construction phase hasn't been programmed. So this is the same scenario as in the full project application. You're going to give us the year and funding source that you would most prefer. So if your project has already been programmed as STBG, it's probably going to need to be an STBG construction phase, most likely, unless there's unique circumstances that it would be a different phase. We don't typically mix funding if we can help it. So you'd probably put for your construction phase STBG in this hypothetical scenario. But for the fiscal year, you're going to put whatever year that you would prefer to have the funding in. So if your right-of-way, if your design phase was in 2024 and your right-of-way is in 2025, and you think you're going to be ready for construction in fiscal year 28, and that's if there's money available, you'd most like to start there, then put it in fiscal year 28 for your year, with an understanding that there might not be money available. You might have to wait till fiscal year 29, but that lets us know if funding's available, that's your preference. That's when you would like it, is fiscal year 28. Put in the dollar amounts you are requesting and continue on. If there's more than 6, there's 6 phases here you can put in. If there's more than 6, there's the drop box where you can add additional phases with an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF or whatever you need. There's a few acknowledgements as part of the process, and then you'll upload the project cost estimate. It needs to be relatively recent. If you give us a project cost estimate that's 10 years old, then that's not very helpful. Those numbers aren't going to be up to date at all. So provide a project cost estimate and some last submission data. And that's about it. It's a lot quicker, a lot easier to do an expedited project application, but just remember once again that these are only for existing projects that have already received programming, that are not undergoing substantive changes to design, concept, location, or scope. So if you're just doing funding changes, if you're just doing small changes like open to public date or total project cost or something like that, you can use this speedier expedited project application. And that the map in the expedited project application, the map doesn't matter, even though the full project application, the mapping is very important. Those are the highlights. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me, Brady Hill, brady.hill@kipta.org, or you can reach out to Chris Nicholas, chris.nicholas@kipta.org, or give us a call. And thank you so much.